I want you to imagine a highly specific but probably entirely familiar
Oh
scenario.
boy. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like 3:00 p.m. on a Tuesday. You're at work, you're staring at your monitor,
Right.
and you just clicked send on a massive project file to your biggest client.
Okay, I'm with you.
The email, it whooshes out of your outbox, and then a split second later, your stomach completely drops.
Oh no, the instant regret.
The absolute worst feeling. Because you realize you attached the wrong data set.
Ooh.
And not just a typo, right? It's the raw, unedited internal data, and the client has it. The mistake is out there. It's totally undeniable.
Yeah, that is a nightmare.
So in that moment of sheer cold panic, who is the very first person you want to tell? And I guess more importantly, why?
You know, that split second of panic and what you instinctively decide to do right after it, it tells you everything you need to know about the actual leadership culture in your organization.
Because you do have a choice. You can frantically try to unsend the email.
Right, hitting escape 100 times.
Exactly. Or, quietly fix it, maybe try to bury the mistake and just pray nobody notices. Or you can immediately walk down the hall and into your boss's office.
Yeah, that gap, right? That gap between clicking send and picking up the phone to tell your boss.
Yeah.
It is the ultimate test of psychological safety.
And that is exactly what today's deep dive is exploring. It's a fascinating text that gets right into the messy, human psychology of leadership, of responsibility, and how we actually build trust.
Yeah, we are digging into a massive stack of sources today
Hmm.
to uncover why some leaders get bad news early, like
Yeah.
when a problem is still solvable,
Right.
while others, they are kept completely in the dark until it turns into a five-alarm fire.
Which happens all the time.
All the time. And if we
Yeah.
connect this to the bigger picture, we aren't just talking about corporate strategy or dry HR manuals here.
Oh, not at all.
For anyone tuning into this deep dive, whether you are, a mid-level manager trying to prep for a tough one-on-one, or a new employee trying to decipher a strange team dynamic, or honestly, just someone who wants to avoid recurring communication breakdowns in your personal life.
Yeah, anyone dealing with other humans, basically.
Exactly. This material offers a brilliant shortcut. It decodes human behavior, but without burying us in corporate jargon. It gets to the root of why people hide things.
And spoiler alert, the most surprising premise we're going to unpack today is that your true leadership skills, the ones that actually dictate whether your team succeeds or fails, they aren't forged in the boardroom or, in some fancy MBA program. They are forged in your living room.
Which is such a phenomenal pivot in how we think about
Right.
authority.
Right.
But, to understand why the living room is the ultimate dojo for leadership, we first have to establish how communication actually breaks down in the workplace.
We have to look at the anatomy of reporting failures.
Yes. And the sources we're looking at, they lean heavily on a foundational Japanese business framework known as Horenso.
Okay, so let's unpack this framework because it really anchors the entire discussion today.
Right.
Horenso. It's an acronym, right?
Yeah.
Made up of 3 words. Hokoku, which means to report.
Mm-hmm.
Renraku, which means to communicate. And Sodan, which means to consult.
Exactly.
And it essentially treats human communication not as this fuzzy soft skill, but as an operational supply chain.
I love that way of putting it.
And the text makes a really bold claim about that very first pillar, the reporting part. It argues that a subordinate's willingness to report a failure depends almost entirely on the boss's track record.
Yeah, 100%.
Like when you walk into that office with your massive mistake, are you going to be interrogated, or is that boss going to help you determine the next move?
Because the psychology of the subordinate in that exact moment, it is dictated entirely by fear or the lack thereof.
Right, your brain is just on fire.
Totally. The text details this complete shift in mindset depending on the environment. Under a bad boss, an employee hides mistakes purely out of self-preservation. When the brain detects a threat, like an angry manager, the amygdala just takes over.
The lizard brain.
The lizard brain.
Yeah.
The internal monologue is simply, I don't want to get yelled at.
Right. Or reporting this is going to lower my performance evaluation, so it's just safer to pretend it didn't happen.
Exactly. And that creates a culture of concealment, which is, an existential threat to any organization.
It creates a massive blind spot because the people at the top are making these huge decisions based on data that the people at the bottom know is already compromised.
Yeah, they're building a house on a cracked foundation.
Exactly.
But you see a complete reversal of that behavior under a trusted boss. A really fascinating psychological shift occurs.
What happens?
Well, the employee doesn't just report the mistake. they report it incredibly early,
Like right away.
right away.
Yeah.
And they do it because their internal monologue has shifted from fear for oneself to empathy for the leader.
Oh, wow.
They literally think, I don't want to cause an unnecessary burden to this person by letting this problem fester.
So the drive to fix the error just overrides the fear of looking bad.
Exactly.
Now, I have to admit, when I read the part of the text detailing this ideal scenario, my immediate thought was, okay, this sounds like a recipe for enabling bad employees.
It sounds a bit soft.
Yeah, because the text says the boss should step in and say something like, I understand your reasoning for what you did. I'll handle the adjustments from here.
Right.
And I'm reading that like, wait, aren't we just giving them a free pass to make mistakes while the boss plays janitor? It sounds like we are removing all accountability.
Well, it's a very natural skepticism, and it's a common pushback. But the text makes a crucial chronological distinction here.
Okay, chronological. So timing is everything.
Yes, it is not about forgiving everything or lowering your standards. Root cause analysis absolutely still happens. Preventing the mistake from happening again, that still happens.
Good, because otherwise the company goes bankrupt.
Right. But it only happens after the boss clarifies who is taking the immediate hit.
Meaning, who's going to stand in front of the firing squad?
Yes, exactly. By stepping up and taking the organizational heat, meaning the boss is the one who will call the angry client or explain the failure to upper management.
Right.
The boss acts as a heat shield. They remove the immediate paralyzing terror from the employee.
Because when a person is terrified of being fired, their brain is literally in fight or flight mode.
Exactly.
Right,
They
yeah.
physically cannot engage in high-level problem solving. Their brain won't let them.
So by absorbing that initial shockwave, the leader gives the employee the cognitive space to actually fix the underlying issue.
Yes. And ironically, by taking on that responsibility up front, problem solving speeds up immensely.
Because the employee isn't spending all their energy trying to build a defense for themselves.
Right. They aren't drafting a CYA email.
Yeah, cover your, yeah. They are spending all their energy fixing the data set they just sent to the client.
Exactly. And because the problem is reported while it's still small, it actually reduces the boss's overall burden in the long run.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. They're dealing with a minor course correction today instead of a catastrophic failure down the line next month.
So the theory makes sense, right? Act as a heat shield, give up control, and trust the employee to fix it. But practically speaking, corporate training doesn't teach managers how to actually sit with that discomfort.
No, not at all.
Which brings us to the second pillar of Hoenso, Renraku, or communication.
Right.
Because if taking responsibility empowers employees, why do so many well-meaning bosses still micromanage the day-to-day communication?
Well, this is where we run into the peril of good intentions.
Ah, good intentions.
Yeah. Bosses often micromanage not because they are evil control freaks, but because they are just incredibly anxious.
They're terrified the ball's going to drop.
Right. And the text highlights a specific, frankly maddening behavior. Leaders who think they're being incredibly helpful by checking in constantly.
Oh, man, the constant check-ins.
Yeah, they check deadlines daily, they double-check standard procedures, they even want to review email drafts before they go out.
Just breathing down your neck.
But in their head, the boss thinks, I am supporting my team. I am being hands-on.
But to the employee, it just feels like suffocating surveillance.
Exactly.
And the consequence of that surveillance is something psychologists call learned helplessness.
Yes, that's a huge concept here.
Because if an employee knows that no matter how hard they work on a presentation or an email, the boss is just going to take a red pen and overwrite it anyway.
Right, why bother?
Exactly. The employee's brain naturally decides to conserve energy. Why put in the cognitive effort of making a judgment call if it's just going to be overridden?
You're just wasting calories at that point.
Yeah. So they stop thinking critically and just sit there waiting for step-by-step instructions.
Which destroys the very initiative the company hired them for in the first place.
Right. You hired them because they're smart.
And then you train them to be robots.
Yeah.
And the boss ends up totally overworked because they are essentially doing the jobs of 5 people.
Well, those 5 people have completely checked out. They're just posting on autopilot.
Exactly. And the text suggests the solution to this is narrowing the focus.
How so?
Instead of managing the entire process end to end, a boss should say something like, I leave the execution of this task entirely to you. Just share this one specific critical milestone with me along the way.
It's exactly like teaching a kid to ride a bike.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, you don't, sit on the bike and pedal for them.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
And you definitely don't hold the handlebars the whole time because they will never develop their own proprioception. They will never feel how the bike actually balances beneath them.
Right, they have to feel the wobble.
They have to feel the wobble. You have to step back and just stay close enough to make sure they don't steer into traffic.
Yes.
You have to leave them a literal blank space to actually learn how the machine responds to their input.
That blank space is where growth happens, period.
Yeah.
And this raises a really important question about how we manage high performers specifically,
Yeah.
because the source material adds a crucial detail here. Highly competent, expert employees do not judge a boss by what the boss knows.
Hey, really?
No, they judge a boss by what the boss is willing to delegate.
Now, that feels counterintuitive. I mean, we usually assume a leader has to be the smartest person in the room. They have to have all the answers.
Well, if a boss needs to be the smartest person in the room, high performers will actually distance themselves.
Oh, they'll just out.
Yeah, they will feel completely stifled.
Yeah.
But a boss who can confidently look at a specialist and say, look, you know vastly more about this specific area than I do.
Right.
I am fully relying on your expertise. That is what unlocks the true potential of top talent.
Because you're pairing the boss's structural authority with the employee's tactical brilliance.
Exactly. It's a perfect match.
But again, this requires a manager to be entirely comfortable not having all the answers.
Which is terrifying for most people.
It is. They have to be comfortable adjusting that distance, giving up that control, and dealing with the sheer anxiety of the unknown. And there's no, delegating 101 class in most MBA programs that teaches you how to manage your own internal panic when you hand over the reins.
No, the classroom is terrible at teaching the emotional regulation required for true leadership.
Which brings us to the twist. Here's where it gets really interesting.
I love this part.
The text makes a stunning pivot right here. It argues that these profound, delicate skills of adjusting distance and letting go of control, they are actually honed in a very different environment.
Right.
They are honed at home, in your living room.
It's a fascinating leap. But, when you break down the mechanics of a family dynamic, it actually makes perfect sense.
How so?
Well, in your house, your corporate title carries zero weight.
None.
You cannot just walk into the kitchen, declare yourself the, chief executive of dinner operations, and expect your spouse or your kids to instantly fall in line and execute your vision.
Good luck with that.
Right. The structural authority is completely gone. You are forced to navigate relationships based entirely on reality.
Right. You have to consider someone's actual mood that day.
Yes, their physical health, the fact that they didn't sleep well last night, or maybe the lingering tension from some silly argument you had last week.
Which makes the home the ultimate unfiltered training ground for human relations.
Because it strips away the artificial leverage of a paycheck. At home, you only have influence if you have actually built trust.
Right. And the text uses the specific example that I found so relatable and honestly a little convicting.
Oh, the logic trap.
Yes, the pure logic trap. It says that if a family member comes to you with a messy emotional problem, like say they are venting about a terrible day at school or a conflict with a friend,
Yeah.
and you reply by hitting them with perfectly sound, pure logic, they will eventually just stop talking to you.
Completely.
Yeah.
Because you are fundamentally misreading what they are asking for.
Right, you're giving them a flow chart when they want a hug.
Exactly. When someone brings you a messy problem, their brain is often in a state of high stress. The amygdala is firing rapidly.
Back to the lizard brain.
Right. And if you hit them with a cold, logical flowchart of what they should have done differently, you are speaking to the prefrontal cortex.
The logical part of brain.
Right. Which is currently offline due to the stress.
It's literally unplugged.
Unplugged. So you are completely ignoring their emotional state. They don't feel heard, which instantly breaks trust.
You have to regulate the emotion through empathy first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Empathy first before you can ever solve the operational problem.
And that connects directly to the third pillar of Horenso, which is Sodan, or consultation.
Yeah.
Because the text says the exact same neurological process happens with subordinates at work.
It's exactly the same.
If an employee comes to you with a nuanced, messy problem, and you just hit them with a logical flowchart of what they did wrong, they're going to stop consulting you.
I will just hide the problems.
Which takes us right back to the beginning.
Exactly. And Living Room teaches us how to consult properly. The text points out how naturally we delegate based on strengths in a family setting without even thinking about it.
Oh, this was such a good point.
Right. In a family, You naturally let the good cook handle the meals.
Right.
You consult the tech-savvy kid when the Wi-Fi router breaks. You go to the highly empathetic member of the family when you need emotional advice.
You don't try to prove you're better than them at those things.
No, you organically optimize for everyone's strengths.
But the second we walk into an office, we forget all of that.
We do.
We try to homogenize everyone into this rigid corporate standard. But doing what we do naturally at home, creating spaces where people's natural strengths shine, rather than a boss trying to prove they are the ultimate authority on everything, that is the hallmark of a great leader.
Yes. And the text explicitly says that taking the time to know people's contours, rather than just learning psychological techniques to manipulate them, that is the true foundation of management.
But, okay, if we shouldn't rely on titles and we should just be empowering people's individual strengths, this brings us to a really critical junction.
Right.
How should a boss actually use the authority they do have? Because at the end of the day, someone has to be in charge.
Someone has to sign the checks.
Right. And the text has a very sharp perspective on this, breaking down the difference between guessing and innovating in a power dynamic.
Yes. The danger of entering a meeting with the conclusion already decided in your head.
Oh, we've all been in that meeting.
We all have. When a boss flexes their authority constantly, or they telegraph what they want before anyone else has even spoken, they completely ruin the environment.
Yeah.
Employees are incredibly perceptive. When they sense that the decision is already made, they just stop trying to find the best solution.
Why would they?
Right. Instead, their entire cognitive focus shifts to just trying to guess the right answer.
Meaning the answer the boss wants to hear.
Exactly. So they can stay safe and avoid conflict.
It's as like a family where the parents dictate every single rule and outcome without ever listening to the kids.
Right.
The kids just learn to say whatever keeps them out of trouble, but they stop bringing real issues to the dinner table.
But when a boss acts purely as an information gatherer, like someone who walks into the room and says, I am going to take responsibility for the final choice, but I need all your perspectives first because you are closer to the data than I am.
That completely flips the dynamic.
It totally flips it. Even the weakest or most introverted voices in the room feel safe to speak up. They stop managing the boss's ego, and they start actually looking for the most effective method.
See, I have to admit, this is another area where I felt some natural skepticism toward the text.
Okay, why is that?
Well, the sources suggest that bosses should regularly show weakness to foster this kind of environment.
Yes, they do.
But, I mean, if a boss comes in and says they are lost or overwhelmed, doesn't that breed panic? Doesn't it make them look completely unreliable to a team that is, looking to them for direction?
What's fascinating here is how carefully the text distinguishes between being weak and being unreliable.
Okay, they aren't the same.
They are not the same thing at all. Showing weakness is perfectly fine and even highly beneficial if you do not abdicate the responsibility of your role.
So what is the actual line between the two?
The text points out the difference between a boss staring blankly at a spreadsheet, throwing their hands up and saying, I have absolutely no capacity right now. I don't know what to do. Let's just look at this next week.
Yeah, that would cause panic.
Total panic. That is dropping the ball and leaving the team in a state of anxious limbo. That is being unreliable.
Because there is no plan, the ship is just drifting.
Exactly. But compare that to a boss who, takes off their glasses, rubs their eyes, and says, look, I am hitting a wall on this data today. I'm exhausted, and I can't see the pattern. Let's put this on a whiteboard and prioritize it together.
Okay, I see the difference.
You are admitting a very real human limitation, exhaustion, confusion. But you are inviting the team to help you navigate it. You are still steering the ship. You're just asking someone to help you read the map for a minute.
And the source draws that parallel right back to the home.
Yes, it does.
It says, it is vastly better to walk through the front door and tell your family, look, I had a terrible day, my patience is thin, and I need some help tonight.
Right.
Rather than hiding your exhaustion, pretending everything is perfectly fine, and then suddenly snapping over like a spilled glass of water.
Exactly. The text calls this leaving a calculated gap.
A calculated gap.
Yeah. By not pretending to be this infallible, perfect machine, you actually leave room for others to step up. When you show a calculated vulnerability, you leave space for your team or your family to show kindness and competence. It builds a bridge.
So, bringing this all home, what does this all mean for us on a random Tuesday morning or a Wednesday evening? As we synthesize all these sources, the text brings these massive organizational psychology concepts, ho renso, learned helplessness, the amygdala hijack. It
Yeah.
brings them all down to what it calls micro moments.
Micro moments.
Yes.
It reminds us that trust isn't a macro-level strategy. It happens at the granular level of daily life.
It says that trust isn't built in one grand cinematic speech at a quarterly all-hands meeting.
No, no one believes those anyway.
Right. It's built in tiny fractions of a second. It's whether you actually make eye contact with someone during a morning greeting instead of just grunting while staring at your phone.
Exactly.
It's whether you physically stop your own work, like literally taking your hand off the keyboard and turning your chair for just a few minutes to truly listen when someone asks a question.
And tying it all back to where we started, it's about carefully choosing your very first words when someone reports a failure.
The email panic.
The email panic. That initial reaction, that split-second decision to either interrogate or support, dictates the entire future of your relationship with that employee.
It's a difference between asking, how could you let this happen?
Right.
And stating, okay, let's look at what we need to do next.
Exactly. Your leadership style isn't a strategy document you keep in a drawer. It's a reflection of your daily habits.
And the text makes it abundantly clear. If you want to fix your team's communication, you have to look at your own habits first.
100%.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating thought to chew on.
Okay, let's hear it.
If our living rooms are the ultimate unfiltered training ground for leadership, it makes you wonder about our daily routines. When we clock out of work at 5:00 p.m. to go home and relax, are we actually just clocking into the most intense, high-stakes management seminar of our lives?
Oh, yeah.
Next time you ask your partner or your roommate to unload the dishwasher, pay close attention to exactly how you do it.
That's a good test.
Right. Are you managing them with pure logic and surveillance, or are you actually collaborating with them? Because the way you handle that dishwasher might just be the most accurate management review you will ever receive.